No, I don't hear you at all.
Okay, how about now?
Oh, now you're speaking. Okay.
Okay, gewaltig. So we are up to the Mishnah on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Afa Silmla, the Torah, the Torah says a whole bunch of protim when the Torah discusses the chiyuv of a Shabbos Aveda. And I'm going to see if I can find the pasuk here on the daf. Let's see where the Torah is. Over here we go. It says the chitasel chamoyroi is a prat, the chitasel lisimlosa is a prat. And then there's a klal, the chitasel lachol avedis achicha. The next pasuk says loisira. Actually, it's earlier. Loisira is shor achicha. Or yasei yidachim salam to him. So at the end of the day, we have four pratim: shor, se, chamor, and simla. So the Mishnah wants to know why we need simla. It says already every avodah that you found, and it lists off already shor and chamor and seh. Why did the Torah have to list individually simla? V'lama yatzis. So why did the Torah list it individually? Lahakish elah, to learn something from simla. Loy malach to teach you. Ma simla miyuchedes. What is unique about simla? Sheyesh ba simonim. It has simonim, and therefore v'yesh lo toivin. People are going to come collect it. It's not hefker. Av kol davar sheyesh ba simonim. Yesh lo toivim chayev lahakis. You're only mechuyev to call something out if it has simonim, and therefore it's reasonable that somebody is going to come and ask for it. My bechalal elu. My bechalal kol elu. What it is in the klal of what? Amarava bechalal kol avedis achif. The Torah already offers a klal to include all types of avedis. Why did the Torah specify simla? For what purpose? For what limud? Amarava. So Rava says the Mishnah explains what we learn from Salma, but we need to know what we learn from Shar, from Chamor, and from Seh. So Amarava Lomali, the cause of Rachmana, Shar, Chamor, and Seh, and Simla. Zaklamar Tzrichi, we need all four pratim. The cause of Rachmana is Simla. If the Torah only said Simla, Havamina, I might have thought, Hanamili be'edim degufa, v'simonim degufa. I would have thought that simonim, yes, you'll get back an Aveda with simonim. That's if you have simonim on the actual Aveda. Or if you have Edim that say it belong to you, the Edim are saying this object belongs to you. What about a chamor, where you don't have any simon on the chamor, but you do have a simon on the saddle that it's wearing? Of a chamor, the Edim to ukuf, the simonim to ukuf, but a chamor, if you have only Edim, that the saddle belongs to you, or you have simonim for the saddle, I would have thought you'll get your saddle back, but you don't get your donkey back. That's why the Torah tells us chamor. Even though you don't have a simon on the chamor itself, only on the ukuf, that will be enough to give back the chamor. The cause of Rahman lovely. So now we know simla is to tell you yesh b'simonim, yesh b'toivim. Chamor is to tell you that a simon on the ukuf is enough to give back the chamor. What does shor tell us and what does set tell us? Zaklamar shor tells us that afilu legizas znovai, even the hair from its tail that you cut off, which is of minimal value, even that you have to give back. And this sounds like the hair of his chinny chin, but the hair of his tail. What does this mean? What does this mean? So Rashi says, Shafilu sar you have to give back every part of the animal, even hair that's on the nose of on the tail of the animal. Now Tosfos asks a very interesting question, which opens up a huge machlokes rishonim. Tosfos in Gizas Nova says, if the Gizas Nova is worth a Shava Pruta, Pshita, it's partial, you have to give it back. Why do we need a special chiddush that gives us nova you give back? And if there's no shava pruta, we're going to learn that you don't have to make a shava on something less than a shava pruta. The chiddush is that you're mechuyev to take care of the animal and to trim its tail at the right time. Even though there is no shava pruta at the time of the giza. So there's a very big shaila here between on a whole bunch of different issues. Issue number one: if the main aveda, the chamor, the shor, is worth shava pruta, does that mean that now everything connected to it, no matter what it's worth independently, it's part of the whole, and therefore is a chivat shavam? It sounds from Tosfos that that's not the case, because Tosfos says there are those who learn Zvibal is part of the bigger animal, even though it's less than the shava pruta. And then there's the shaila. Yes, the one hair alone, as you cut it off, might not be a shava pruta, but if you keep on trimming the hair, eventually you're going to have enough that it will be a shava pruta. So from Tosfos is mashma that avada would be chayiv, because that's what Tosfos says. You have to cut it off, and then it's going to add up to a shava pruta. So this opens up a different shaila. If you, let's say, find a bushel of wheat kernels, each wheat kernel alone might not be a shava pruta, but combined they're a shava pruta. Would that have a chiva shava? So these are all the different discussions that come out from this Gizas Novai. One comment of the Gemara about a tail, we learn a lot of halachas about. We learn a lot of halachas from this. Okay, so Zok the Gemara. We now know what we learned from Simla. We now know what we learned from Chamor, and we now know what we learned from Shor. Now we still need to figure out Seh. Zok the Gemara v'Seh ligi zaysov for the shearings. Frek the Gemara. If we already know that a couple of hairs from the tail of the Shor you're mechuyev on, surely the full shearings of a sheep you are. Frek the Gemara v'lichter v'chman Shor afilu legizas novai you're mechuyev to give back. The kol shekain sell legizaysov. So why do I need sell legizaysov? Ella Amar Rava, Chamar Dabar l'Rabbi Yehuda, v'sed avoda daveda l'divrei koil kosh. Zok Rava, the set we don't know what it's for. Now Rashi tells us avada. No one's going to say that there's no limud to learn out of set. It's just that we don't know what it is. We don't know what the limud from set is. So avada, there is a limit. No one's suggesting that it's an extra word. We're just saying that we don't know. We don't know what it's for. Now, what is this chamor devar? We learned this in Bava Kama. Everybody else learns from chamor listed by the mazik of bar that kelim you're not mechuyev. You're not mechuyev on niske kelim b'bar. However, Rabbi Yehuda holds you are mechuyev on niske kelim b'bar. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda didn't have anything to learn out of the word chamor mentioned in the Parsha of Bar. So Zok Rava is listing off different places where we don't know what the reason for certain words in the Torah are. So Amar Rava chamor de Bar Rabbi Yehuda. Chamor mentioned in the Parsha of Bar, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds Yechaya for Nizke Kalim by Bar, and said Aveda, which is our sugya, the Divrei Koil Kasha. Aveda, according to everybody, we don't know what it says for. So kasha, we don't know what it's for. Maybe to tell you that even the galolim of the animal you have to give back. It does have some value as a fertilizer. The Gemara says no. Galolim afkurim afkalu. Nobody believes that galolim have to be brought. Zotrashi afkurim afkalu l'misha tarach. Whoever dealt with the galolim and had to clean it up, the owner of the animal will surely be masking that he should take it. And therefore, like the Torah definitely is not coming to be marba that you have to give that galolim. So that's the Gemara svara. Maybe it's to tell us that simanim is deraisa. The boilan. We had a shaila, and the Gemara is going to entertain the shaila at length at the bottom of Abad Aleph. The boilan simanim deraisa or derabana. We don't know if simanim are deraisa or derabana. If you remember, we learned in Bava that if simanim is lav deraisa, then only a siman muvak would be good to give back something with. But if you're siman deraisa, even a non-siman muvak would be good. So maybe the Torah throws in the word "sad" to tell us that simanim is deraisa. Zok to Gemara, the boilan simanim deraisa derabana because Rachman said afilu b'simanim madrinon and b'simanim deraisa. We learn it's deraisa from seh. Zok to Gemara, that doesn't make sense. Amri b'dikatani lahu tana l'simanim kabe simla. In the Mishnah, the Tana himself says ma simla sheyesh lo simanim v'yesh lo toivin. It says already, simanim gabi similar. The Ketani ma similar miyuchedes sheyesh bo simanim v'yesh l'toivin. Chayv lachis I've called over sheyesh lo simanim v'yesh l'toivin. Chayv lachis smamina tiseh lav l'simanim udas. You cannot say that Seh is coming to teach us simanim because the Mishnah says that Simla is teaching us simanim. So the first and most obvious question is, okay, so that's not a good use of the word Seh. But from Simla, as the Mishnah says beferish, Simla sheyesh lo simanim v'yesh lo toivim, you see right away simanim is the deraisa from Simla. So let's put that on hold for a second, because that is one of the rayas that the Gemara is going to bring, and we'll see how the Gemara diffuses and neutralizes that raya. Tanu Rabban, let's see what the Brisa says. Asher toivat, you lost something. Prat la veda she'en ba shavapruta. It tells you that if the Veda does not have a shavapruta, you're not mechuyev to give it back. How do you see that from Asher Toivat? Rashi says Shetahei Karuya Aveda. It has to be considered a loss. If it's useless, if it has no value, it wouldn't be considered a loss. Beautiful. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the same halacha, but from a different place. To Umatzasa, and you will find it Prat la Veda she'ein ba shavapruta. How do you see it from the word of Umatzasa? Rashi says Metzia. It has to be considered that you found something. If it's of no value, if it's less than shavapruta, you haven't found anything. Gewaltig. My beinayu. What's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda who learns it from Umatzasa and the Tanakama who learns it from Toivat? Amar Abaye mashmoyis darshan ikavinayim. There's no nafkamina halacha. It's simply where they felt we could learn this halacha from. My nafkalei me'asher Toivat, umay nafkalei me'umatzasa. Fact Gemara. Ulamand Omar, Ulamand nafkalei me'asher Toivat. According to the Tanakama, learns from Asher Toivat. Hi umatzasa my avad. What is he going to learn out of the word umatzasa? Zok to Gemara, not a problem. You need it for the chiddush that Ravina taught us. The Amar Ravina, and I'm saying Ravina because the Bach changes Ravnoi to Ravina. Amar Ravina, umatzasa dasai liyadei mash. We had a shaila. Are you mechuyev to return the Metzia of a goy? So we learned you don't have to. Zok to Gemara, okay, maybe you see the Metzia of a goy on the floor, you don't got to pick it up, you're allowed to ignore it. But what if you picked it up already? And it was before Yish. Maybe there you would be mechuyev to give it back to the guy. Zok to Gemara umatzasa. Even though it's already in your hand, you have already found it, the chiyuv is only to return avedas achicha. The Torah says that's what you should do to avedas achicha. Even if you found it already and it's already in your hand, you only have to give it back if it's avedas achicha. So there's a very important limit from umatzasa that even if you already have the aved in your hand, you're still not mechuyev to give it back to a guy. In fact, Gemara ulamand nafkalei umatzasa. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who uses umatzasa to tell you that if it's less than the shavapruta, you don't give it back. Hi asher toivad my ovidli. What is he going to do with the word asher toivad? He can use it for the chiddush of Rabbi Yochanan. Dam Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochi. Minayin la aveda sheshat fanor shimuteres. How do you know that an aveda that's lost from everybody is muteres? Shenemer keitas l'chol avedas achicha asher toivad mimenu umatzasa. Mishavuda mimenu umatzuya etzel kol adam. If it's only lost from him, but it's available to anybody else, that's the type of aveda you have to give back. Yotis azu, it excludes something got swept up by the ocean, shavuda himenu, not only is it lost from him, but it's ve'ena Metzia etzel kolab. So we have two new halachas. We have the question of pachas b'sham pruta. We have the halacha of motzasa. You don't have to give it back to a guy, and we have the halacha of shatfanar is for sure not mechuyev in hasham. Zok to Gemara the idich had Ravina minale. What is the Tanakama going to do with? I'm sorry. What is Rabbi Yehuda? How is Rabbi Yehuda going to know the special limit of Ravina? How is Rabbi Yehuda going to know that you don't have to return the Metzia of a guy, even if you picked it up? So Gemara nafkale meumatzasa from the extra vav, and I guess the other man will learn that you don't make a limit out of the extra vav. Umatzasa ve'idich had Rabbi Yochanan minal, and if you darshan asher toiva to tell you shava pruta, how will you know the halacha of Rabbi Yochanan? Gemara nafkale mimenu. It says asher toiva mimenu, so we can learn Rabbi Yochanan's halacha. If it's lost only from him, you give it back. If it's lost from everybody, you don't give it back. The idich and the other Tana holds mimenu le'mashmalei. You need asher toiva mimenu. The word mimenu alone wouldn't do it. So Abaye said that there's no machlokes halacha between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama whether or not you learn that a Metzia has to be a shava pruta from the pasuk of Mutzasa or from the pasuk of Asher Toiva. But the Rambam says no, there is an nafkamina lalach. The Rav Amar, you know what the nafkamina is? Let's think about this for a second. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that it has to be worth a shava pruta Mutzasa when it's found. The Tanakama said it has to be worth a shava pruta Asher Toiva when it's lost. So Zokt Rava, let's analyze changes in values between the time that you found it and the time that you're giving it back. Rav Amar Pruta Shahozla Ikibinai. What if you found something and it was worth a pruta, but before you had a chance to return it, its value dropped? Mandamar Masher Toivat, if you learn it from Masher Toivat, Ika, because all we care about is the time of the loss. It was worth a shava pruta, it was worth a pruta, and you have that. But umandamu mutzasa leka. But if you're focusing on the pasuk of mutzasa to tell you shava pruta, well then we're saying that you don't have to give it back unless it's worth a shava pruta when you pick it up when you found it. Umandamu asher toivat. If you learn it from asher toivat, it doesn't matter how in the mutzasa. No one's going to say you don't need a mutzasa. You have to have found it. So it should also require a pruta. But lucky you don't have that. So therefore, Rabba's nafkamina does not work because whether or not you learn it from Asher Toiva, whether or not you learn from Mutzasa, you surely need that it should be worth a shava pruta, both when the owner lost it, as well as when the finder found it. Ella, let's try a different nafkamina between if you learn it from Asher Toiva or from Mutzasa. Ella pruta shehukra ikabinai. What happened was when the Bailam lost it, it was not worth a pruta. Then while it was lying there on the floor, abandoned, it became worth a pruta, and then someone found it. When I found it, it was worth a pruta. It was not lost at the shava pruta. Zok Gemara, that's not logical to argue either. Because even if you learn it from a mutzasa, you still need an asher toiva that says so in the pasuk, and you don't have that because it wasn't worth a pruta at the time of the loss. Ella, you know what the nafkamina would be? Pruda shahuzla v'chazer v'hukra ikibinai. So the Bach takes out the word shahukra, the first shahukra. Ella pruda shahuzla v'chazer v'hukra ikibinai. What happened was when the person lost it, it was worth a pruta. So he has his asher toiva. Then it was lying there on the floor, and it lost its value, and it was worth less than a pruta. But by the time the person found it, it had once again risen in value, and it was worth a pruta. So it was worth a pruta when it was lost, and it was worth a pruta when it was found. But there was a time lapse in between where it was not worth a pruta. And that's where there'll be an nafkamina, zotrafa. If you say asher toivat, it just means that when you lost it, it had to be worth a pruta. This was. Mandar mutzasa, we would learn that Ba'inan, the Isbe Shir Metzia Mishas Aveda Chas Metzia. Umatzasa tells you that from the Asher Toivat until the Umatzasa, during that entire period of time, it would have to be with a pruta, and if at any time in between it's not, it will not be mechuyev to be returned. So the Rava suggests that there's a halachic nafkamina, although not a common case, but there's a halachic nafkamina between the two pshatim, that if you learn from Asher Toivat, it's enough that it's worth a pruta when it was lost and when it was found, even though it dropped in value in between. If you learn from a mitzvah, then you would learn that it had to have been worth a shavar pruta the entire period of time. Gewaltig. Now we're going to get into the shaila that the Gemara introduced a little bit earlier. Iboilahu, simanin da'iraisa idrab. The halacha that you can give back an aveda with simanim, is it a halacha da'iraisa or is it a halacha d'rabbanan? My nafkamina. What's the difference? You give it back. So what's the difference if you give it back to the Raisa or the Rabbanan? Let's turn over onto the base. Did the Amid base load for the item? Yeah. The Nafkamina is Ladur get Isha B'Sama. When it comes to Chosh Mishpat, you have Hefker, Bez, and Hefker. So if Bezdin says that with Samanim you can give back an Aveda, there's a mechanism for it. But what if a Shliach loses a get, and then he finds it, and we're not sure if it's the same get that he lost, but he has Samanim on it? Would you give it back to the Shliach? Now you're going to be, if it's not the right get, you're being matter in Eshishish to marry. That's a serious problem. That can't just be fixed with a hefker, best and hefker. So there, if you hold that simanim is the rise, and the Torah recognizes that simanim is proof positive of the fact that this person owns the get or lost the get, well then you can even be machshir get based on simanim. Yomer Daraisa, Hadrina, you'd give it back to a shliach who lost his get. Yomer Rabbanon, we would say ki over the Rabbanon to kanta b'mamana. Where do the Rabbanon make a takana? They do it by Hilchos Mamanis, like giving back an Aveda. I will be a surah, but to suggest that this woman is non-married, when she really is, loy over the Rabbanon takanta, the Rabbanon wouldn't do it. Zak to Gemara, Tashma, let's see if we could prove this shaila in one direction or another. Tashma from our very Mishnah, Af hasim la hoisa b'chlal kol elu, v'lama yatzis. Why did the Torah itemize that a simla is one of the Avedas that have to be returned? Zok Mishnah, our Mishnah, lahakish alav alayvah. Ma simla miyuchedes, sheyesh la simonim v'yesh la toivin chayv l'achmitz. Af kol davar sheyesh la simonim v'yesh la toivin chayv l'achmitz. So clearly our Tana is saying black and white. That from the word simla, which is definitely a word in the Torah, simonim is enough to give back an Aveda. Black and white in our Mishnah, simonim is Araisa. Zok to Gemara is something fascinating. Zok to Gemara, maybe Tana Toivin it's Trichalei, Simonim Kedinas. Maybe all that Mishnah means to say is that from Simla we learn that it's not Hefker, it's Yesh La Toivin. The Mishnah is Yesh La Simonim. The reason why the Mishnah is Yesh La Simonim is for a practical reason. Why is a person going to come and claim this Simla and not be Me'ayish? Because he has Simonim. Even if the old Simonim is Lav Daraisa, but in order for someone not to be Miyayish and feel like he even has a chance of getting his Aveda back, he has to have some way to identify. So for the Mishnah, you don't see Simonim Daraisa. You just see that it has to be before Yish, before Tefker. Simonim is just an example of why someone might not be Miyayish. But the main halacha that you learn from Simla is that the person wasn't Miyayish, so you could not learn from Simla that Simonim is Daraisa. Okay, so let's try another brayso. Tashma chamor b'simone ukuf. There's a brayso that says that you give back a chamor, even if, right, the brayso of Amaralov said, what do you learn from chamor? We learn that even if you don't have a simon on the chamor itself, you only have a simon on the ukuf, on the saddle, will give back the chamor. So you see that you can give back the chamor with a simon. And you learn that from the word chamor. Zakt Gemara, no, ema be'ete. Let's say that Bryson just means the Bryson is focusing on the fact that you don't have a raya for the etzim zach You only have a raya to its successor. But lav davka is the raya, a siman. Maybe you have edim that say that this saddle belongs to you. Okay, let's try another raya. Tashma. It says that the aveda remains with you via imcha aderoish achicha oisai until your friend claims it. Frek the Gemara. V'chisayla al baita sheyitnenu loy kodim shidashenu. What you're going to give back to aveda before anyone claims it? Like, how are you going to find the guy? You're going to run around in the street looking for a guy? For who? Of course, someone has to claim it. So why does the Torah need to say aderoish achicha oisai? That's very obvious. Ella darsheyu imramai. The Torah is telling you that you should give back the aveda to anybody who you could prove is not a ramai. Darsheyu imramayu or ain't a ramai. How in the world would you be able to know if someone's a ramai or not? If someone's making a legitimate claim for your aveda, my love is simana. Wouldn't that be a great way to verify that this person is not a ramai, not a thief? So you have a rai simanim is the raisa. Maybe the pasuk means you need Adam to verify that was his, and that would in fact prove that he's not a rabbi.
Yosy, but how are the Idim gonna know? Also, they also know through a simon that they have on the behind to know that it is.
That I believe is 100% true, but at the end of the day, it's two Adam saying it. See, one of the questions we had earlier is we learned that you can give a Talmud Chacham an Aveda back with Tfiyasayim. How in the world could someone be an aid for himself? Nowhere ever could someone be an aid for himself. The biggest Talmud Chacham tzaddik in the world, you won't trust him as two aidim. The Torah gives him a status of one aid, and for himself he's not believed at all. So how can you give it back with Tfiyasayim? Even a simon. How can you give somebody back something with based on his own testimony? How you took him? How can you do that? So the Meshech Chachma, the Ursamech, actually teaches this Gemara very beautiful. It's a special chiddush by Aveda that it doesn't. The standard rules of Chosh and Mishpat do not apply to an Aveda. All you need to do is prove that he's not a Ramai. You don't need two Eidim that it belongs to him. You just need to know that he's not a Ramai, and therefore, and you know that from a Derosh Achicha Isa. Therefore, a simon would work. It proves that he's not a Ramai if he holds Simon of Deiraisa, or if Eidim say that it belongs to him. That would also prove that he's not a Ramai, even though they're relying on someone. But it tells us that he's not a Ramai. Or who adin if we know that he's not a Ramai because he's a Tzur Merabana. That's enough that we should return it. But Avada, the Eidim are saying someone in a Chanami. Tashma. Ein Me'idin El al parts of Aponim Imachlit. The halacha is, Rachman al if a person dies and we don't know who this person is, and we want to be mater his wife, to marry somebody else, but she'll be in a guna. If we can't positively identify this mace as being her husband, they have to have seen his profile, his face, and the nose. Even though there are simonim in the body of the person, and on his clothing, it's not enough. They have to have a tviyas ayin. They have to recognize the face of the person. So you see that you cannot rely on simonim. They have to be able to recognize it with tviyas ayin. So shema mina simonim lav deraisa. You see that simonim are not deraisa.
Yosy.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Yosy.
Yes.
A little morbid, but what about the number on an arm?
That's a good question. It seems like that's only a simon, but let's see why a simon is not good. And it seems like a number on his arm wouldn't have the weaknesses of these other simon. Says Dr. Gemara, maybe the simon. So simamina simon lav deraisa. So Dr. Gemara, Amri, you know what type of simonim the Brisa says you can't rely on? Are gufay the arich v'guts. The simon was he's tall, he's short. That's not really an accurate simon. There are many people that are tall, and there are many people that are short. Or Kalov, why can't you rely on a Kalov? I know that jacket that this nifter was wearing belonged to Yankov. You know why the Chashina and Lashela, you're chayshid that maybe it's somebody else who had borrowed his jacket. So to answer Duvi, I don't think anybody would ever borrow somebody else's numbers. So it could be that would be a simon muvak. So that would be a good simon even if someone was lav deraisa. You have to ask a rough for that. So if you're concerned that Beryl might be wearing Chaim's beged, and therefore the beged that someone's wearing is not a raya about who they are, so then Chamor b'simana Yikov heichem madrina. Didn't we say from the pasuk from Chamor we learned that it's enough to give a siman on an accessory. Zaktimor is a very big difference. Amar uchiv loy shuli inshi uchba b'shum demaskav leilacham. Nobody will borrow a saddle because the saddle sort of is broken into the specific animal. And if you put it on a different animal, it's going to cause it discomfort and sores. So therefore, an ukav is a siman muvak. Sorry, it's a good siman because no one would typically lend out a ukav. But it's very normal for someone to borrow somebody else's jacket. Ibai sema, Caleb, even if you're not choishish that he lent them out, but b'chiyur v'sumkiri, the siman was just the color. And again, the color, yes, everybody knows Yankel had a red jacket, but you can't be 100% sure that nobody else had a red jacket. Ella, how the time? So let's stop a minute, because I want to drill down a little bit on what Chaim asked. Even the Edom are relying on a siman. So I told Chaim Hanami by Edom you would rely on a siman, but it could be that Edom have tzvi aside, and that's even more than a siman. So that could also be possible. But if you look at Tosfos, it does seem to say that Edom would be believed even if their identification comes through a siman. Okay, so at the end of the day, right now we still don't have a raya because of the simonim that were disqualified by identifying a nifter might be shvach simonim. So let's try a different brayso. Matzu kosher b'kiss over arniki. You found money tied up in a kiss or in an arniki, or ubetabas. I'm sorry, we're talking about a get. A get was lost, and it was found amongst the items that somebody has. So let me just look at Rashi over here. Matzei b'kis, Rashi says shliach maybe get. There was a shliach that was bringing a get. And he lost it, and he lost it for a while. So it could have been swapped out with a different get. And la'acher's man matzei kosher b'kis shaloi or ba'arnik. After a while, where there's a possibility that things are swapped out, he found it tied to something that was surely his, like his kiss or his arniki, uvetabas or his signature, or shematu ben kelaf, or it was found amongst his clothing. Afilu lizman meruba kosher. If you're going to tell me that the reason why begodim are not a good siman to identify a nifter, so then why is it good enough to identify a get? Kimatzli kosher b'kis, am I kosher? Nechus l'she'ela. Maybe it's somebody else's get who happened to have borrowed the kiss of this shliach. Zok Gemara Amri kiss for Arniki Tabas.
I'm sorry. What's the whole story? He's the shliach of a get,
and he lost it. And 2 weeks later, they find the get tied to his kiss, to his arniki, or to his tabas.
And
so the question is,
he knows that he never lent out his kailim. So what's the shal?
I don't know if we could trust him as an Eid Echad.
He doesn't know how it got there?
Rashi is Shemeh Hishel Kisai, Lacher. So it doesn't matter if he knows, you need to aid him. Once he lost it, you need to aid him. Who said he has an amonis?
But again, somebody, it starts the story from the beginning. Reuben gave Yankel a get to take to his wife.
Deliver to his wife.
Right. Okay. It took 2 weeks longer because he took it home and he put it somewhere. As he went in Shabbos, and the wife stashed it away somewhere, and he couldn't find it.
He lost it. He was unable to find.
Right. So what's the shale? It's so.
Well, I'm not sure if it was stashed away in his house because we already learned that if it's a makom where there's no rabbim there, then you're not choshit. You're not choshit. So maybe it was lost in a public place. It was lost in a place where there are a rabbim, and he lost it. He dropped it. So if it's found connected to his kiss, or connected to his arniki, or connected to his tabas, then we'll give it back to him.
Right, because the people, we will bring a rye from where? From Shalif and Agine, that nobody knows anything. We found a dead body, and we can't recognize the body. But no gefunden seine the Kleid.
We're discussing the Shalif Chayshin on the She'ela. If something is connected to something else, is that a right?
Because
okay, so let me finish the Amid because we're running out of time, and we'll get back to this. We'll get back to this. So Zok Gemara, Kimotzei kosher b'kiss. If you found it tied to his kiss, am I kosher? Neiches l'sheila. Maybe he let his kiss out to somebody else. Zok Gemara, Amri kiss v'arniki v'tabas loy mishali inchi. People would never lend out these three items. Why? Kiss v'arniki v'shum de mesamni. Rashi says menachshi v'oimer simin la'adam shemashal kisoy shemachel lemaslo. When someone lends his wallet out, it looks like he's selling him his mazel. So people don't do that because it's a bad siman. The tabas, and no one would lend out their signet ring, because someone might forge his signature on documents. So therefore, those are simanim of hakim. Those will never be released. Those are very good siman. What if the person who died had a shuma? Shuma, I think, is a wart or a mole. Does the article say if it's a wart or if it's a mole? The article says wart. Okay. So Zok the Gemara, Ein Eden al Shuma, Velazar ben Mahavai, Eimer Me'eden al Shuma. A wart is a good right. So what is the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Elazar ben Avoi, whether you can rely on a wart? Maybe this is the machlokes. The Tanakama is over simanim d'Rabbanan. Shuma is a siman. The Tanakama holds simanim d'Rabbanan. Therefore, you cannot rely on it. The Elazar ben Mahavoi is over simanim d'Raisa. So at least now we found the machlokes tanoim. If simanim is d'Raisa or d'Rabbanan, Rabbi don't have a raya. The chula am simanim d'Raisa. Maybe everybody agrees that simanim is d'Raisa. Here the shaila is, would somebody have a similar wart in the same place? If it's ben Gilai, I guess someone who's born around the same time. Rashi says because they were both born in the same mazel. Marsavar Shuma Metzuya ben Gilai, Marsavar Shuma Ein Metzuya ben Gilai. The question is b'chalal if it's a siman or not, but everybody else simanim d'Raisa. Iba Yisema, the chula alma Shuma Ein Metzuya ben Gilai. It's a good siman. There's another problem with the siman. A shuma can sometimes change in color after someone dies. Rashi says, its color will change after someone dies. If it's and therefore it's not a good siman. Now, once again, we always struggle how to understand the machlokes and Metzias. Are you going to say that there's a machlokes and Metzias? The Metzias has to be one way or another. So my Rebbe always explained that what it means is, of course, sometimes a shuma can change in color after someone dies. The question is the frequency level of that occurring enough that we need to be worried about it? So it's a machlokes and halacha. They all know exactly what percentage of the shumas change colors after someone dies, and the question is that enough of a chash that we need to be worried that maybe this one changed? It's not a good raya. And everybody else v'simanim d'Rabbanan. The machlokes is if shuma is an unbelievable, super heavy duty siman of a siman muvak, where everybody agrees it works, even if simanim is lav d'Raisa. Mar savar shuma siman muvaku, umar savar shuma lav siman muvaku. So we have many ways to deflect this brisa, and we don't have a raya from here to either side of the shayla. Amarava, in Tim Tzalim is simanim lav d'Raisa. If the old simanim is lav d'Raisa, then I have a simple question: Heichi miadrinon avedasa b'siman. How could you return an aveda with simanim? And that's why would the Rabbanan allow that? The answer is the person who found Aveda is very happy to give it to anybody who brings a simon. Why is he happy? So that if he loses an Aveda and he only has simonim, that they'll give it back to him.
It's a mitzvah.
So he's willing to give it up because he wants someone to give it up to him.
Yosy.
That's not a good reason. I'm sorry?
Why wouldn't he just be happy because it's a mitzvah?
It's not necessarily a mitzvah if you're giving it back to the wrong person.
Okay.
Amalei Rab Safar with Rava, I don't understand. It's not my Aveda if I found it. So if I want my own benefit, that someone else should return an Aveda to me. I'm going to give away now an Aveda to the wrong owner because this might not be an acceptable simon. How could you allow someone to do that? Ella, it's not that. The Baal Aveda is happy for you to give, you the finder. I'm happy if you the finder gives it to anybody who has a simon. Even if that person might not be me and I might end up losing it, I'm still happy that you should do it. You know why? Because that's my only chance of getting it back. Why? Made the yada. I know when they lost something, they ate them Leslie. I don't have ate them, so I'll never be able to get it back. I'll tell myself, most people don't know the details of this object to be able to offer the simanim that I could offer. I'll offer some very unique information about this Aveda. I'll get it. So Mamela, even the loser of the Aveda is happy that you should give it to the first person who brings simanim, because he feels it will likely be me. But even if it's not, I'm still happy because otherwise I never have a chance of getting it back. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Echad aloiva mishloisha, Yachzer aloiva, and shloisha shalova min echad Yachzer lamal. We had a shaila as follows, where one of three stars were found together, and they all have the same loiva. So the halacha was, we say chances are it fell from the loiva and not from one of the three malvas. Well, what if there were three stars that all have the same malva, but three different loivas? Chances are that fell from the malva, because otherwise, why were all these three stars sitting here together? So, Frank Gemara, if simon is lav deraisa, which means it's not really a simon, the fact that they're together, are you going to say licha leila loiva lahadur leila malva? Is the loiva ever happy when the malva gets back his star? Surely not. So why is it that the Rabbanon allowed three stars with the same malva to be given back to the malva? Amalei hasam svaru. That's a different svar. That it's a really good right. Echad loiva mishloisha yachsel loiva the gabe loiva shchichi gabe malva lo shchichi. It's likely that a loiva had three stars that he was the loiva on, but what is the likelihood that three different malvas were here exactly at the same time and dropped these three stars at the same time? That's very unlikely. Shmami na miloiva nafal, they must have fell from the loiva. So that's like a simon move. Shloisha shalova me'echad yachsel malva. The same reason the gabe malva shchichi gabe loiva lo shchichi. So let's just turn on to Chav Ches Amar Aleph. Just a couple more lines.
So simon muvik is different than a regular simon.
That's right. A simon muvik, even if you hold simanim lav deraisa, everybody agrees that a simon muvik is a simon that you can give it back. Zokt Gemara elahadet nan mota tachrich shel shtaros or yaguda shel shtaros. Harei yachzir. If you found a bundle of shtaros or you can give it back, and we learned because it was rolled in a specific way. We learned earlier. So could are you going to actually say that a loiva wants it to go back to the malva? Once again, it has to be a deraisa. So Rava said that simonim is deraisa. Okay, let's stop over here. I just wanted to get onto Amar Aleph, and Be'ez Hashem will be mamshef tomorrow morning. Chaim.
Yeah.
So let's go back to review what you were asking. So you're asking what's a practical scenario of a shliach who lost the star, and it was found somewhere connected to his kiss. So you're going to ask me, did he lose? Who said he even lost his kiss? It must be he lost his kiss as well, and now they found them together. Vasta goes, this guy was a shtickle shlemazel.
No, the shal is the mazel. The shal is if I had something, right?
Right.
And Chabas Falait, that happens to me a lot. And then I find it whatever, Mashenko. So I say,
if you found it
no,
in your house, if you found it in your house, that's not the shiloh over here. Because we already learned if you drop a star, a get in a place where no one goes, that's not a shiloh. It has to be where you lost it somewhere where there was a rabbin there.
right?
Remember we had a whole shiloh. If there's a rabbin there, are you choishes for another Yosef and Shimon?
Then the tennis that the Gemara gives is also not. What's the shot that somebody else found my thing and he's going to use it? And then
maybe the get, maybe this get is not the get that I dropped. Maybe this was a different shliach who dropped somebody else's get. That's what we're worried about.
And so what's the teretz? That my signature.
If it's found with my kiss, then we can assume that this is the same get that I dropped because clearly this is my kiss.
Yosy,
Yes.
in the case of the signet ring, why can't we have a case of Yehuda that he does give it out? Okay, they don't lend it, but they use it. They do give it for certain reasons, right?
Say that again.
The Shaiva Yehuda, the Master Batuma.
Oh. Yeah,
So
I don't think. I think what we need to. I think we need to understand that a simon does not necessarily mean that it's 100% foolproof. It means it's infrequent enough that we can give it back. Like we just had the discussion of the shuma, and there's machlekes about will a shuma change in appearance after someone dies? So clearly it will. The question is there frequency enough that we need to be worried about it, or is it small enough an occurrence that we don't need to be worried about it? So yes, it is possible that in very rare occasions, yes, someone would give away his wallet, but it's so unlikely that we could rely on it for a sin.
Okay, sure.
Is that Mati?
Nope.
So you're sitting in Mati's seat?
I'm sitting in Mati's seat, yes.
Oh, gewaltig.
Because you're not here, so I got to look at the screen.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Shkoich, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Good morning, Rab Meilach.
Good morning.